Greetings, travelers. Last time I said I knew you were sick of me, but this time I know that you missed me. Welcome to another class guide in Final Fantasy XIV, featuring the Doomslayer. There are many reasons to play Gunbreaker. Maybe you want a more intricate rotation to your tank after your favorite tank was gutted. Maybe you like gunblades, or maybe you just wanted to start a tank from level 60. Well, whatever the motivation, it's time to help you learn to become a meat shield that does more damage than the other meat shields. I think people are often afraid of tanking at first because it contradicts our innate playstyle in every other class. You're gonna have to take some damage. Never fear, as tank classes are much sturdier and bulkier than the other class counterparts, so it's easy to endure endless amounts of mobs. Another thing holding you back might be that you think aggro management is difficult, but thanks to this expansion completely gutting aggro mechanics, you just slap on tank stance, in this case it's Royal Guard, and now even thinking about hitting an enemy is enough to get them to attack you. Gunbreaker is very fast-paced compared to most tanks, and even has an entire burst combo with an off GCD meant to be weaved in between. For this reason, this class will pretty much require you to double weave both for DPS and for mitigation at times. So if you play on high latency, my condolences. Also, before we continue, make sure you have your Aoe Rotation on your hotbar. This is especially important for tanks who need to maintain aggro on packs of enemies, and then be sad that you don't get your third Aoe button until level 72. When running dungeons, it's pretty much just a clusterfuck for however many packs you can tank at one time. The relationship between you and your healer is like that of a BDSM couple. You're gonna need some safe words to ensure that no one is uncomfortable. As usual, communication is the most important thing in a relationship. But when in doubt, just pull more, because unlike real life, if you accidentally go too far and kill your whole group, you'll get another chance. If your healer starts to get nervous, they will usually say something. Most players are fine with big pulls from my experience, but it never hurts to be absolutely certain. And as a courtesy, please face bosses away from your party. Now that you got the basics, it's time to teach you some mitigation. To become a true tank, your goal is to take as little damage as possible. Now you might think that completely contradicted what I said earlier about taking damage, but you want to get aggro on everything and then use a mitigation tool while still avoiding optional damage. Optimally, you want to bulk up before taking a beating and not when you are about to die. For example, right here I get all these mobs together and then I pop Rampart to take 20% reduced damage. Notice that I do not stack mitigation tools. Stacking multiple mitigations is not necessary for trash packs, and it is much more efficient to use them one at a time, spreading them out instead of eating all your chocolate at once. Now I want to be clear that in terms of truly optimizing your damage reduction, if you have a white mage in your party, their AoE will stun mobs, which can kind of give you a pseudo 7-second immunity to damage. However, I have trust issues with random healers. So wasting 7 seconds of a mitigation tool that you would have had to use with any other healer in your party is not exactly a bad habit to have. Gunbreaker does have slightly worse mitigation than every other tank class, but it's not that much worse. So let's just go over every tool at our disposal. The common tank mitigation tool for every tank include Rampart, as I just mentioned, to reduce damage by 20%, but you also have a 30% damage mitigation button. In this case, it's called Nebula. Although the 30% mitigation tool is standard on every tank, it does have a different name for every class for whatever reason. Other common tools include Reprisal, which will inflict a debuff on all enemies around you to make them deal 10% less damage. Now Reprisal might seem kind of weird at first, but when used on a boss right before it deals damage to every player, it does act as a mitigation tool for your entire party. It can also be used for trash packs if you are running out of cooldowns. Arm's Length, while it does make you immune to knockback, will also make enemies that hit you while it is active attack 20% slower for 15 seconds, which is effectively 20% less damage. But note, this attack speed debuff does not usually work on bosses. Now for Gunbreaker specific tools, we have Camouflage. This gives you a 10% damage mitigation and also makes you parry significantly more often. What does parry mean? If you parry an attack, you take 20% less damage from that attack. It is semi-random because I don't believe it guarantees a parry. It will significantly reduce damage when you're getting blasted on all sides in a trash pack. Heart of Light will make you and all your party members within range take 10% less magic damage. It is very useful for raid-wide magic attacks. Aurora is a small heal that provides a regen and can be used on anyone. And finally, Heart of Stone is a 15% mitigation tool that you can cast on a party member. In addition, it will passively heal that person that you target as part of your damage rotation, and the healing portion of this does last longer than the mitigation part. And while this might seem like a lot at first, it's better to think of these tools as buttons that make you take less damage. Making sure that you have a cooldown up before kindly asking all the enemies to hurt you is very important. It's just something to make sure that you have at least one of up while dumpster diving. The thing I haven't mentioned yet is your damage immunity skill. We get Super Butt Plug, which lets you shoot yourself in the face and go down to 1 HP, but makes you immune to damage for 8 seconds, usually causing your healer to have a heart attack when they see it. This tool is great when you are about to die, but it's even better to use it right after your healer just peeled you back up to full and you undo all their hard work. So be afraid of this button, but also remember what your invulnerability skill does. Thankfully, all tanking skills are off GCDs that can be weaved as necessary. That's enough talking about tanking for a little bit. We'll get into some advanced techniques later, but let's first talk about damage. Ha! You thought it was going to be the damage rotation part of the video, but instead, it's me, shameless self-promotion. If you like the video, I would highly consider subscribing. Just do it. Just click that button, baby. That way you can see more of my unholy videos, and be annoyingly notified whenever I livestream. In order to motivate people, I originally set a goal for 100 subs and 1,000 subs, but as a shorter term goal, I plan to make a Dank Night guide at 420 subs. Thank you for your contribution, and may you mix pain and pleasure. There are many openers that Gunbreaker has at its disposal, but let me give you the rundown. As tradition, our damage over time abilities will deal the most damage, so waiting a little bit until you have all your raid buffs up before using these skills is ideal. I'm not going to go over optimizing everything on openers, but note that your dot does not interrupt your current combo, meaning you can pretty much mix it in at any time. In 8-man instances where you have multiple tanks, it is important to decide who will take aggro and who will not. Simply aggressively discuss with the other tank to figure out who is doing what. If you are the main tank, then just leave tank stance on and start your opener with your ranged lightning shot to try to get a little bit of better burst up front and secure aggro. If you're the off tank, leave tank stance off for your opener and don't start with lightning shot. Off tanks should usually turn tank stance on about 15 seconds into combat. Now this will ensure that you are the second highest enmity for certain mechanics, and will ensure that you don't forget to turn it on later if necessary. However, I should list it as a downside that if you do turn it on early like this, as I mentioned, there is always the risk that you eclipse the other tank and become the main tank. Nothing will frustrate your party more than the boss flipping around constantly, like me when I can't fall asleep. So, you can leave tank stance off, but remember to turn it back on and instantly provoke if you ever see the main tank get yeeted, and instantly turn it back on if you see an ad phase appear. So, a standard main tank opener looks something like this. Start with lightning shot, then immediately reload your weapon with bloodlust, and show them no mercy. Now you're ready to rip and tear. Except we're not going to go through our entire continuation combo. Instead, after Gnashing Fang and Continuation and Blasting Zone, we cast Burst Strike. Then, we hit him with our dots. And now we can go back to ripping and tearing. After you're done finishing up your burst combo, it's back to our 3-button rotation and using Burst Strike while our DPS buff is still active. Now I'd recommend looking up some different openers. The one that I just explained to you here helps you do burst up front to ensure aggro and serves as a reasonable introduction to your damage rotation. It is not optimal for DPS though. Also as a tip, you can use your dash skill purely as damage as part of your opener as well, wherever you can weave it. But it might not be back up if there's a mechanic that happens very quickly, so just be aware. But let's actually talk about what our DPS rotation looks like. All tanks have a 3-button combo for DPS, and Gunbreaker is no exception. Gunbreaker will also heal itself on the 2nd button of its combo if you're interested. And finally, you get a cartridge for completing your combo. You click this rotation until you get 2 bullets. At that point, you use Burst Strike, but every 30 seconds, you use that bullet on Gnashing Fang and do your continuation combo. As far as what you need to keep track of, every 30 seconds, you will have your continuation combo come back up, as well as Blasting Zone. So make sure you have a bullet and don't miss the timer on Blasting Zone. Every minute, you're going to get your damage buff back up and your dots. Make sure to have at least 2 bullets when going into your DPS buff phase. And every 90 seconds, you get 2 bullets for free. So make sure that you're out of ammo before you reload. It might not seem that crazy when I first talk about this, but it is very easy to miss your timers or accidentally not have a cartridge when you probably should have. But I have told you everything that you need to pay attention to. And because continuation is one of the most satisfying combos, it's easy to remember when that one comes up every 30 seconds. After playing Gunbreaker enough, you're going to view your entire life in 30-second windows. You'll start seeing your bathroom breaks in 30-second windows, your cooking timers in 30-second windows, and your haunting memories that come up when you're trying to go to sleep at night every 30 seconds. As another tip, if you're about to go into your continuation combo and a mechanic is coming up where you need to mitigate, pressing the mitigation ahead of time so you don't have to double weave during your continuation combo can help if you have latency problems. Finally, let's talk about some advanced tanking techniques. Interject is used to interrupt specific enemy abilities. These enemy casts will be highlighted in red to show you that they can be interjected. This could be necessary in something like Puppet's Bunker, where mobs can inflict paralysis on the entire Alliance raid otherwise. Most boss monsters have a move that deals a ton of damage to the player they are currently targeting, commonly referred to as tank busters. These will not outright kill you in normal content, but if you notice your health dropping significantly after certain casts, make sure to use some mitigation for that next time. Some modern normal fights will even have an indicator when you're about to explode and take heavy damage, so walk those away from your party and mitigate. Provoke is important in case you are the off tank and your main tank goes down. However, in high-end content, some mechanics require you to switch tanks in order to survive. When you need to do this, you want to cast Provoke on the cast before the tank buster. The boss will finish its current cast before switching targets, and make sure to mitigate it. Remember, savage tank busters will usually outright kill you if you don't mitigate. In addition, if you are trying to tank swap, using Shirk on your off tank can help ensure a successful swap. Or if you don't want to tank swap, you can always use your invulnerability to cheese a tank swap tank buster if your invulnerability is up. I should mention that I do not personally tank in high-end content, but I have listened to my static tanks complain enough to understand the general concepts. Another tool at our disposal is Low Blow, which can stun a non-boss monster. It is useful to interrupt casts that are not otherwise able to be interjected. Remember though, if your healer is a white mage and they have been stunning enemies with their AoE, the enemies will eventually become immune to stun. So let's review. Use an opener that fits if you are the main tank or the off tank. In this video, I only told you an opener for a main tank, so please be courteous and look up other openers that fit your situation. Every 30 seconds, use your continuation combo in Blasting Zone. Every other 30 seconds, you will use your DPS buff, your continuation combo, your dots, and make sure to have at least 2 bullets and use everything on Burst Strike while you still have your DPS buff. And every 3 30-second intervals, you will get 2 bullets for free, so make sure to have an empty cartridge before you reload. And if you're feeling generous, please use mitigation when needed. Overall, Gunbreaker has many things to keep track of, but it does have clear phases every 30 seconds. If you are feeling overwhelmed, make sure to prioritize mitigating over DPSing in high-end content if things are not going well for you. However, your DPS is still important, and you will have to work harder than other tanks. But once you are good at it, you will deal the most amount of damage of all the tanks currently, as of patch 5.4. Now let's get out there and rip and tear some bosses.